Hello everybody, my name is Cael Sleezer and we're about to have a very special guest here on EverGreenlee News. Myself and Marijkee Mendeszoon got the chance to talk to Iowa State Athletic Director Jamie Pollard. It was a great interview and it's coming up right after this. Hello everybody, my name is Cael Sleezer. You're watching EverGreenlee News. Our stories stay fresh for you. I'm here with Marijkee Mendeszoon and Athletic Director Jamie Pollard. Jamie, thanks for coming in today. Appreciate you sparing some of your morning with us. So we're just going to get started. How'd you get here? How did the great Jamie Pollard story get started? How did you get to where you are today?
Well, I grew up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I was the baby of 5, and I love telling our student athletes that I think I'm a great example of you can do just about anything in this world, because 3 of my siblings didn't even graduate from high school, and only one of my sisters did, and I was a first-generation college student. I was a Pell Grant recipient, and college sports was, that's why I went to college. I didn't think to go to college because of my education. It was I still just wanted to be a student athlete. And so I love telling that story to our student athletes because I think oftentimes they look at a position that I have today and they go, well, I could never get there. And, here I am.
Can you talk a little bit about your transition from being a high school athlete to a college athlete and what it looked like getting there?
For me, because I was Division III student athlete, it didn't really seem like it was that big of a transition. Quite frankly, I look at student athletes today, and because of the internet, the world is so much more accessible. When I was in high school, you thought you were a really good athlete because you were good in your conference, because there wasn't an internet to know what everybody else was doing. So if your local paper covered you, you thought you were pretty big, right? And I think about that with today's kids because everything is so national. Where back then, for me, I went to the school in my hometown, so it really was kind of an extension of the local paper, just continued to cover me, and it just kind of felt like I got 4 more years of high school.
So you've had a few athletic director jobs. You've been here at Iowa State for a while, but this isn't the first place you've been on the big Jamie Pollard tour. Tell us about some of your earlier days in athletic directing jobs and what you kind of learned then.
Well, this is my first position that I had that I was actually the athletics director. Through my career, I was at St. Louis University, at the University of Maryland, at the University of Wisconsin, where you were, in a role where you supported the athletics director. What I would tell you is, and it'd really be a message I'd tell all young people, is the job of leadership always looks so different in the office next to the leader, because when you're not in the corner office, you have ideas, but you probably don't have a lot of solutions. And when you get in the corner office, you've got to have solutions, not ideas. And that's, something when I think about throughout my career, I worked for people that really allowed me to grow and to be able to learn how to make or find those solutions.
With that, can you speak a little bit about your family and what it was like being one of the first to go to college and being in your hometown with that too?
Well, what's weird for me is because I was the baby, 3 of my siblings were born in England, and so most of my family really has no idea what I do. They don't follow athletics, they don't understand athletics, and so, unfortunately my parents are no longer with us, but I can always remember my mother, she couldn't have told me the difference between football, basketball, and baseball. She just was always, wanted to be supportive, but I still sometimes wonder, how did I turn out the way I did? Because nobody in my family was athletic, and nobody to this day, and my siblings, they couldn't tell you the difference between Iowa State and Stanford. They just don't know.
Right, and what was your transition like as family coming over to the United States? What did that look like?
Well, for me, I wasn't born
right.
yet. So, I can go on the website of the statue, Ellis Island.
Yeah.
And you can find where my siblings and my parents came over and what boat they were on, and it's all
Wow.
recorded.
Yeah.
So I always think of that kind of weird, like, in my career, I've moved. I've been Wisconsin, Missouri, DC, Ames, Iowa. Yet I think of my parents. They put 3 children, one who was disabled. They got on a boat with 3 trunks worth of like clothing and came across the ocean, to the United States. So like thinking about like moving across the country seems like nothing compared to what that must have felt like back then, because they didn't have the communication that we have today, right?
Right.
So they got on a boat, and I don't know how long it took, but I'm going to guess it took weeks. And they arrive at Ellis Island and find their way to little old Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and you kind of go like, well, how did that happen? So sometimes I think about that from a family standpoint, and you just go, life is like such a chance, and how do any of us end up where we end up?
Right.
Yeah, speaking of ending up in crazy places, your son ran for the U.S. national team. What was that like? What was it like watching him run?
Well, I tell people, because I get asked often in my job, like, what's your favorite moment as Iowa State athletics director? And, I could probably cite multiple, but one of them that I'll always remember was being in Poland at the World Track and Field Championships. And you have your son, like wearing the red, white, and blue. I get emotional talking about it. It's weird, but it's just, you can't describe what that's like unless you get to actually do it. Because there's something about like, Team USA, right? And all of a sudden your flesh and blood is right there in the World Championships. And that was just really cool. And so I'll always remember that.
All right, thank you for sharing, Jamie. We're going to head to a quick commercial. We'll be back right after this.
We're back with Jamie Pollard. Jamie, what is the transition like with the Iowa State athletics right now? How's the football season been treating you as well as fans, and how can you speak a little bit about that?
Well, the fall's been incredibly enjoyable. We've had 46,000 season ticket holders. We've averaged over 60,000. We get our 3rd straight night game this weekend against the University of Texas. There's nothing to me better than a night football game in Jack Trice Stadium, and now that we've added the fireworks as the intro, but it's the opportunity to watch so many fans be able to tailgate and enjoy the day. And we've had 6 great weather days, and it looks like Saturday for a November day is going to be even another great weather day. So from that perspective, it's just been really good. I obviously have little to no control over what happens on the field.
Right.
I have a little more control of what happens kind of in and around the stadium.
Sure.
But it's been enjoyable to watch the team progress this year, from a very young team that got off to kind of a shaky start, but has really kind of found their stride. And so I'm really fired up for Saturday night because we're in essence playing for an opportunity to compete for a Big 12 championship.
Right.
Yeah, I'm as fired up as you are, Jamie. Can't wait to go to that game Saturday. I want to talk Cyhawk wrestling. I'm actually named after Cael Sanderson, so I keep a pretty close eye on that. Cyhawk hasn't had a victory on the Iowa State side since 2004 for wrestling. Do you think this is the year that they finally break that?
Well, thanks for reminding me of that. And, Coach Dresser and I have talked about, I've been here 19 years and we've beaten Iowa in every sport in my time here except one, and that's wrestling. So I think we're due, and I think it's, would be very fitting that the time that we do it, and when we've come close a couple times, there's a couple times we probably should have, but we didn't. But this time it's going to be, it's in Hilton this year, and it's also going to be the first ever college wrestling dual meet that ESPN does on their platform. And so that's special in itself, but to win that would be really neat.
Yeah, it would be really awesome.
Could you talk a little bit about the women's basketball team and the men's basketball team as well, just about how young they are and how you see that as projecting into conference play?
So, our women's team's going through a big transition. Clearly, last year was a special year. One, winning the Big 12 championship. Two, having Ashley Jones, arguably the greatest player we've ever had at Iowa State. And so, for me, what's been enjoyable is it's almost like a whole new roster. And so it's kind of just fun to, you don't know what you're going to get. There'll be lumps along the way, but it'll be fun to watch them progress. Mm-hmm. And so I'm encouraged by it. I don't have unrealistic expectations about what they'll do, but I believe they'll continue just to grow and get better. On the men's side, I think we have the opportunity to have a really special season. We're very talented. Clearly the most talented team that TJ's had in his 3 years. If they can play as hard as the previous two teams played, they'll have an incredible year, because if they can put that kind of effort with the talent that they have that the two previous teams didn't have, could be a pretty special season. So I'm fired up for that too.
Right, yeah, it'd be great.
I want to talk about Ashley Miles-Grieg and the gymnastics program. What's it been like bringing her on, watching her kind of build up this gymnastics program in her first year here?
Well, it's I'm really proud of her for how she's immersed herself in Iowa State. She, quite frankly, had no ties to this area. She had never coached gymnastics. She obviously was one of the most decorated women's gymnasts ever in the history of the NCAA. She's represented our country. But, her whole gymnastics world was kind of in the Southeast in Alabama. Her professional world was not in gymnastics, other than she was an ESPN broadcaster. And so what I've been most encouraged by, she's got an infectious personality, and I believe that'll definitely help in recruiting. I think she feels indebted to us because we gave her a chance when other people, including her alma mater, wouldn't. But what I'm most encouraged by, she's immersed herself in Iowa State. I see her at everything. Beginning of the year when the president had orientations for new students on campus, she was part of doing that. We did the Student Athlete Olympics the other night, and she's there. She shows up and is present at everything we do, and not everybody on our staff does that. And so I really respect that she is kind of just bought into the Iowa State culture. And so we'll see what it's like. I'm sure there'll be some lumps. The first time ever gymnastics coach, I'm sure it won't go perfectly straight, but it'll be fun supporting her.
Absolutely, and that's what we need, especially with women's volleyball and the Nebraska game and everything like that, and seeing the progression with the Big 12 as well. We like to see the women empowerment, and just that support is amazing as well. And could you speak a little bit about the new facilities that are being built with the wrestling? I know that I've seen some recent articles with some publications about getting the wrestlers some more play or facilities to use.
So, we're committed to providing all our student athletes the best experience possible.
Right.
And a lot of that goes back to just the facilities that they get to, train in, mm-hmm. or compete in, study in. eat in,
Yeah.
So, but right now, the facilities that we're working on, on the women's side, a new tennis facility that we just purchased from the Ames Fitness and Racket, the indoor tennis bubble that is out at the research park, and we'll be expanding that to 6 courts over the next spring. But we're also building outdoor courts for them at the research park, and so tennis will have their own new facility. The current indoor tennis facility will be then repurposed and redesigned for our volleyball team, so that our volleyball team will have their own dedicated training facility right next to the basketball complex. And then our hope is to purchase the 2 facilities from the All Iowa TAC that we could ultimately turn into the home of our wrestling team and then the home of our gymnastics team.
All right, thank you, Jamie. When we come back from commercial, the future of Iowa State will be back on EverGreenlee News. Our stories stay fresh for you.
At Iowa State, innovation is dynamic. It's collaborative. It's inviting ideas from all corners and working across disciplines. Because we've learned when ideas are shared, we all benefit. Innovate at Iowa State.
Jamie, I'm going to ask you a tough question out of the break here. Gambling with student athletes has hit Iowa State pretty hard in the last year or so. How are you and the athletics department looking to move past that and kind of prevent something like that from happening again?
Well, I think it was a learning opportunity for everybody involved. And what I would take from it is that, abstinence is not the right education. It's recognizing that, for better or worse, it's an addiction. And it's addiction no different than drug use or alcohol use. People maybe today, they maybe don't see it as that, but when you talk to the people that got caught up in this past year, it clearly was an addiction. And we need to do a better job of adjusting how we educate to recognize that it's happening. And just to say, Cael, don't bet. I tell you, don't speed, and we all speed, right? Or you say, to college students on this campus, don't underage drink, and people will underage drink, right? And so then, I think what happened in this particular situation is you say don't bet, and somebody's placing a $2 bet that's on their phone, it's like a video game, and they don't think about every single person we dealt with in this situation had no idea what their cumulative total was. They knew they were doing $2 or $52 bets a day, but they had no idea that it had amassed to like $30,000 because it was an addiction. And that was just totally eye-opening for all of us. Even the people that got caught up in it, just didn't realize what it was happening to them.
Yeah, and it was heartbreaking for the community as well. With that, on a lighter note, what would you say about the progression with the CYTown? How would you say that's going, and what's it gonna look like? Is it gonna be finished on time, or?
CYTown, is a project that doesn't really have it had a start date, but it doesn't really have a finish date because it's driven really by the market. And so the market will dictate what is in CYTown and when it is in CYTown. And it's a complicated process because the economy right now, cost of construction, cost of money, aren't in our favor. But it's a unique project that it's not like in some municipalities, you could build on this corner or you could build on that corner. And if you don't build on this corner, you can wait for that corner. In CYTown, there's only going to be one. And so you either want to be in or you're not going to be in.
Right.
And so we have that as a little bit of leverage, but it's a process that will probably take, perhaps another 5 years to get it fully built out. But it's going well, and it's probably gone better and quicker than we could have imagined. But at the same time, in my world, we do stuff like yesterday, so it doesn't feel like it's moving as fast as how we did other things, but that's because this is very market driven.
What are your goals with CYTown?
Well, the goal of CYTown really is to create new solutions for old problems, okay? And the old problems are, we have a set of facilities, namely the Iowa State Center, so CY Stevens, Sheeman, Fisher, that at one time, 50 years ago, were cutting edge facilities way ahead of anybody's thought process. I mean, what Dr. Hilton's vision was off the charts. But those facilities have become somewhat obsolete and in different forms of disrepair. And unfortunately, the campus doesn't have any funding to address those problems. And so we created this idea of CYTown to generate new revenues using the parking lots to maximize better use of the parking lots, to create a revenue stream that could hopefully repurpose both CY Stevens, Fisher, Sheeman, potentially at a convention center, at an outdoor amphitheater. And so the real goal of CYTown is to create new revenues to help deal with old problems.
I want to talk college football playoff. It's going to be expanding next year, and if you look back in time a little bit with the new format, Iowa State would have made it as the 10 seed back in 2020. So how do you think this new college football playoff format is going to affect how teams approach it, or even how Iowa State approaches it?
Well, I'm really excited for it because I love the bowl system, and I want the bowl system to somehow remain, because I do believe that the bowl system is important and it's part of our history of college football. But at the same time, by expanding to 12 and with the new formation of what the composition of the Big 12 is, we've got as good a chance as anybody to be in the college football playoff. And I like our chances. I like the fact that our team is really young right now. And if we can keep that team together for next year and the year after, we could be in a really good spot when it comes time for the first couple years of the college football playoff.
So one last thing we'll ask you here. If there's one thing that you want to accomplish with your time left here at Iowa State, what would that be and why?
I would say to renovate Hilton Coliseum, because I think Hilton Coliseum is a big part of the history of Iowa State University. And it's been a project that we've talked about. Unfortunately, it's a very expensive project, and it's a project that will be really complicated funding-wise. But if we could get that at least started, I don't know if we can get it done, but if we could get it started, that would be, to me, a kind of a capstone of my time here at Iowa State.
All right, thank you, Jamie. That's about all the time we have. I'm Cael Sleezer, Marijkee Mendeszoon here. Thank you for watching us here on EverGreenlee News. Our stories stay fresh for you.